Okay, for this project, it's going to be a little bit different than before. Before, I would sort of tell y'all in class, and then we would review by video. Y'all would go home and cut it out. But this time we cut it out in class because there was no way for me to send enough material home with everybody to cut out. So I actually didn't give you any instructions. So, moms, I want y'all to know that you probably will need to help your daughter with this project, especially the younger girls. This project is not hard, but it's going to require a lot more thinking ahead. And if they get muddled up in a step, and it'll just be really frustrating to them. So you might want to just keep the project organized for them, help them with it. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is take your squares and lay them out into a pattern. Now, when I first started out, I cut out 10 of one color and 10 of the other. Because for this project, we're going to need 20 squares, and we cut those out in class. And I just did a patchwork look. Well, I didn't really like it, and I kept loving the little pieces of purple velvet that I had. So I went back and cut out some more squares and just alternated just to mix up my pattern a little bit. And so I laid it out moved it around, probably spent 30 minutes moving those squares around until I got something that looked good to me. And I was actually surprised yesterday at how good everyone done coordinating their colors. There was not a single person in class who did not do a good job of coordinating their colors. The things they did blended. Even one of the younger students, Alexis, she was totally on her own, and I thought the younger girls would have a much harder time doing that. Even she did a good job coordinating colors to cut out with her squares. And then, of course, Kat is going to do the patchwork look, the crazy quilt look, where she did each square a different color, and that's going to be fun to see. And then some of you used multiple colors like I have here. And so just lay them out until you get something that looks good. You can do a pattern, or you can just do it at random. I've done it both ways before. Okay, so we're going to get started. And the first thing we're going to do is we've got to sew a row of our squares together. So you're going to choose either you can do your row of 5. Oh, I also wanted to tell y'all, just go ahead and put this in the floor. Unless you're lucky enough to have a mom who keeps the table clean and you have a really big table that you can spread this out on, just go ahead and sweep the floor and do the project in the floor. I mean, as far as laying it out, and then when you layer the pieces together, it'll make it so much easier on you. Or you can do the rows of 4 and sew those together. Whatever's easiest for you. I'm going to, For y'all, doing the rows of 4 might be easiest because you've only got to keep up with 4 pieces. And you're probably going to want to go ahead and pin your squares together. I also wanted to tell y'all, before you start, iron all your squares. I ironed all of these because it'll totally make a difference in how they fit together. And then you may want to go back and lay your pattern on them and just see if they're pretty square. You know, lay your pattern on it and see if you've got sides sticking out, big old, and it's fine, because I know we were in a rush. So I pinned these 2 sides together. So I got my 3 pins here, so that I can remember, you know, the order of how I want it. Now I'm going to pin this one to this side. See, this project is not hard, but it is going to take some thinking and planning. Because it's a type of project to where you can do something wrong and you won't know it, and then you'll go back and start trying to open things up and it's all messed up and you're like, what? So just take the time to do one step at a time. Please do not wait until Monday night or Tuesday morning to be doing this. Because this project is going to take you some time to think about it and plan. You're probably going to get really frustrated if you're trying to do it at the last minute. That's why I'm getting the video uploaded today. We've got a rainy, icy day. It's the perfect time for y'all to take some time to lay your pattern together, sew some strips. You don't got to do it all in one day. You could lay your pattern out today and then sew you know, the 5 rows together. And then tomorrow you could sew the 5 rows together and have your top piece. Okay, now see what I did right here? I went ahead and pinned each side of these 4 together. So I'm going to sew this strip together. I'm going to go and I'm going to do that with each row. So I'm going to have 5 strips. Alright, I'll be right back. So I've got 1 row sewed together now. And so now I'm going to pin together a 2nd row. About 3 pins. And I could not, I'm going to tell y'all, unless, like I said, you have all the same blocks, you're definitely going to want to pre-pin this, especially if you have multiple colors like I do, because just me walking in there to the machine, I couldn't remember which block went to which. So I'm even pinning mine. I thought I would be able to just stack mine and go in there and sew it together and come back, but it's definitely going to have to be pinned together to keep track of. Now, like I said, the ones of you who have all the same color, you may just be able to take 4 blocks in there to the machine and sew 4 blocks together. Because see how I've got 1 strip, and now I'm fixing to go and sew the 2nd strip. Okay, this time I probably won't be back until I get all 5 strips done. Okay, I've got my 4 strips sewed together. So we've got our 5 strips here. So this is what you should have. You make your 5 strips. Sew your 5 strips together first. And then, look and make sure the pattern is still right, because see, at one point I reversed one of my strips and I was like, wait a minute, that didn't look right, because I didn't want any of the same colors touching. So just lay it all out again in your floor somewhere you can spread out and make sure you've got it right. Got that how you intended it to look is still right. And then you're going to take 2 strips together, and now you're going to sew them together along this way. So you're going to flip it over, faces touching, and your seams. Try to match up your seams the best you can. If they're off a hair, and like I said, some of you, if your squares were not exactly cut right, or if you had a material that stretched, your seams may not match up perfect. But try to put those together more so than the ends of your fabric. So then I'm going to pin this strip together, and I'm going to sew it together. Okay, so I've got 2 of my strips sewed together, and I can tell that I've already got something wrong here. My pattern is not matching up how I planned. So let's see if we can figure out what's wrong. See how this project is going to require you to stop and think every little bit? Okay, what is wrong here? I think I got this one. That's what it was. I had that one reversed. Okay. Now I'm back to my original pattern. So, see why I'm telling y'all you're not going to be able to wait and do this at the last minute? Because I've already spent 2 or 3 hours on this project. Just having to think, go slow, lay out my pieces, keep watching my pattern, pin it, do it again. And if you got your seams matched together right here, and there's extra fabric in the middle, let's say you pin your 2 seams together and one side's wider than the other, you can work that in with your fingers, like while you're sewing, you know, like push one fabric or you can fold it over where it's excess, or you can have your seam be off a little bit. Just whatever you want to do to get that to where your seams are basically lined up when you're pinning two sides together. Okay, so now see, I've pinned on my bottom piece. Oh, and I was going to tell y'all, don't just pin it at the seams, because that was sliding on me, so I was going back and pinning it in the middle of each square as well. It was holding it together much better. Okay, now I'm going to sew those two strips together, sew them to that top side, sew this strip to the bottom side, and then I'm going to have my front piece done. And then we're going to come back and I'm going to show you how to layer your batting and your back piece. Okay, so I've got my pieces all sewed together. So I've got my top ready here. So now we're ready to layer it. Stack it. So here's my backing. And on our pattern, it says that we're going to have our 20 squares. Okay, we cut that out in class, and we've now sewed it together. We have our piece of batting that I gave y'all. It's 40 by 48 inches. And now we have our piece of backing. And I gave everybody a piece of backing, but the backing is not cut exact. So you're going to need to measure your backing and cut it 44 by 52. So I'm going to lay mine out here. You know what you could do is, mine is almost exact. I know I have my sides right, and I'm only about an inch long on my ends. So what you could do is just lay your piece out. It's going to be too big. Lay your backing out. And then put your piece of batting on top of it. And try to put it in the middle. Don't line it up to the sides, to the edges. Because we want the backing to stick out on the sides and the top and bottom. So put the batting in the middle. So I've got, trying to get it to where I have about the same amount sticking out everywhere. Okay, now I'm going to take my top piece and put it on. My top piece needs to be as evenly on this piece of batting as I can get it. There should not be much batting. It's going to be almost the exact size of your batting, your top piece is. And you want at least 2 inches of material on each side of your top piece. There should be, so adjust it around to where you've got 2 inches on either side. Okay, and once you get it all on there, just right, then we're going to pin. We have got to pin this very, very good. So I'm going to put a pin in the middle of each square, and I want it to go through all 3 layers. It needs to go through my top piece, my batting, and my backing. This is going to be your final project, so get it all smoothed out. Okay, so I'm going to put a pin in every square. Okay, I've got mine pinned each square. So I've got 20 pins in here because I've got a pin in each square. And I've got it pinned all the way through the back. Now, I need to have about 2 inches of fabric on each side. And I have that on the sides, but I've got more than that down here on the bottom, so I'm going to have to cut some of this off. But before I do that, I'm going to turn this over and double check and make sure there's no obvious problems in the back. Like sometimes if you get a big huge fold in the back or something, then you're going to know, oh, that's wrong. You take the pin out, smooth it out. See right here I have a fold. So something is wrong right here. Mine's probably not going to show up good because it's a busy back piece. So there's a fold. I don't see any more folds, so I guess my back is pretty much okay. And you know, you may want to do this one way, pin it, turn it over, you know, take some of the pins out, smooth it again, whatever, until you are pretty sure this is pretty smooth. Okay, like I said, I don't see any more obvious folds, so I'm going to turn mine back over. And my sides are already about 2 inches from the edge, but my bottoms are more like 3 inches, so I've got to trim the excess fabric off. And so if you went ahead and pre-cut your backing to the measurements stated on the pattern, then you don't got to worry about this, that yours is already going to be 2 inches. But if you did like me and you just went ahead and put it on there to sort of see what you had, now's the time to cut this off. And you want to be about 2 inches from your fabric, not 2 inches from your batting. Don't worry about that batting, just ignore it. Just as long as it comes to the edge of your fabric. If it comes out a little bit, don't worry about that. Just, you want your, from the end of your top piece for your backing, you want it to stick out about 2 inches. Because we've got to turn that over and make our edge piece. But we're not going to do that now. That'll be part 2 of this project. So 2 inches from the end of my top piece. I'm not paying any attention to the batting. I'm just ignoring it. And if it's getting your attention, you can go ahead and trim your batting to where it's at the edge of your top piece. No, I'm just ignoring my batting. Okay, so I've roughly got 2 inches of fabric from the end all the way around. Okay, and that's all you do for part 1 of this.